Welcome to RickRackRuby. I'm Laura Cluvo. Today we will be making this angel Christmas ornament featuring Pixie Noel 2 fabrics for our first Christmas collection. She's fun and easy, so let's get started. To make the Pixie Noel angel ornament for the first Christmas collection, I'm going to use my mini charm square ornament patterns. This pattern is available on Etsy in my RickRackRuby shop. We're going to use this pattern and this pattern, angel wings and angel body. I have these cut out and I have carefully cut this one out so that I have a window template and a regular pattern. And then the wings is just a circle, but this is just the right size. So I've used these patterns to cut out a lightweight fusible interfacing from the wings and a lightweight fusible interfacing from the body pattern. I've also cut out 3 2.5-inch squares. I fussy cut this center to feature the little bunny motif, and then this blue one goes above it and the stripe goes below. And then using a 1/4-inch seam allowance, I'll sew these and press the seam allowances away from the center. And then I'm going to use this template to draw out the shape of the angel on the patchwork when I have it sewn. Here we go. This is what it looks like on the back. I've got a 1/4-inch seam allowance and I just pressed it away from the center. Now I'm going to use my window template and just kind of place it so that the bunnies are more or less in the center. This is very close in the bottom. I originally designed this so that it would fit on, a 2.5-inch mini charm square. So it is very close here, but it'll work. So now I'll take this disappearing marker and just sort of trace along the inside edge of this. It doesn't really have to be perfect. Here's a little tip. I noticed that this was folded, and if you want to really preserve your pattern when you're cutting it out so that you can get both pieces, if you fold it and then you start by cutting right here at the top, the straight edge, then it's a little bit easier to get started and to cut all the way around. Anyway, so there we go. I've got that shape, and now I'm going to cut out just outside of that purple line. There is some waste here, and it doesn't really bother me because it's just easier to cut 2.5-inch squares, but if you want to cut like 2.5 inches wide and maybe 2 inches tall, I think that would work. And I think that looks pretty good. So now I'm going to take my fusible lightweight interfacing and press that to the back. And again, this is why I cut just outside of that purple line, so that I make sure that this fusible doesn't extend beyond the edges of the fabric and stick to my ironing board. I wouldn't want that. So I've got it lined up pretty well. There are 2 reasons for the interfacing or the stabilizer on the back. One reason is because I'm going to do some decorative stitching along these seams, and it's just a little bit helpful to have something to hold on to. And also when I stuff it, I don't want the, I want to make sure that I maintain the shape of this piece and I don't stuff it so much that it distorts. It just helps a little. I have my machine threaded with white thread, and I'm going to do a blanket stitch across the top and a zigzag along this bottom edge. For the blanket stitch, I want the bar of the stitch to be along the seam and then the little legs of the stitch to go up. Here's my previous one that has the blanket stitches going up onto the blue, and then the zigzag, it's all on the stripe. This time I'll put the zigzag on the pink. so we can see the difference, and you can decide which one you prefer. Here we go. There's the blanket stitch at the top and then the little zigzag at the bottom. And these stitches are sort of like triple stitches where they go back and forth over one another to make a heavier line. And I always like those stitches. Anyway, for the backing, I've sort of rough cut a piece of this pink. Sometimes I like the back to be the same as one of these fabrics on the front, but I also like to take the opportunity to introduce a new print. I'll place these right sides together and I'm going to stitch around this edge, leaving the top open. And also I will back stitch at the top, at the start and the end of this, just to make sure that when I turn it and stuff it, that stays put. Now I'm going to cut it out, turn it, and stuff it. Let's have a look. That looks pretty good. All right, so I'm going to stuff it just from the bottom to the top with my Polyfill Ultra Plush Fiber Fill. Okay, I've stuffed it all the way to the top. Here's how it looks. And now I'm going to just gather up the top. I like to use a thimble. I have a doubled strand of white quilting thread, and I'm going to secure the knot in the seam allowance, and then I'm just going to gather around, going through a single layer of fabric all the way around, and I keep this finger in here, just making sure that the stuffing is out of the way of the stitches. The stitches are not getting caught in the stuffing. I'm all the way around, so now I'm going to tuck in that seam allowance into the center top like this. That looks good. You can see why it's important to stuff all the way to the top. You want to make sure that the neck is able to support the head. So now I'm just going to stitch through and across through those gathers a few more times and secure my thread in the back. I go right there. Remember, there'll be some wings right there glued on, so it won't matter if there's a little hole right there. I secure my thread with a French knot, just in case you're new here. Wrap 3 times and then just kind of pop it through to the inside. And that seems to be pretty secure. It works for me. Then I have a couple of faces that I have made. I just need to choose which one. They kind of look all the same. I don't know really, there's a lot of difference between them. I think I'll just use this one. So I'm going to squeeze some hot glue right here in the bottom center, the flat part of the bead. And of course, you can find the instructions for the RickRackRuby face in my Focus on Faces video. Here's how much glue I have. I don't want the glue to squeeze out, you know, between the head and the neck. So you don't want too much glue, but you also you want to make sure it's going to hold. So I just kind of hold it like this until I feel like the glue is secure. Now I'm going to add a lace collar. I'm going to cut 15 inches of this flat white lace, about 3/4 of an inch wide. I've used this lace a lot, and it doesn't have to be exactly this lace, and it doesn't have to be exactly this width. Anything between like a 1/2 inch and an inch will probably be fine. So I'll fold back one edge and I'll secure the knot. Again, I'm using a double strand of white quilting thread. Secure the knot into that fold and then just gather that up by stitching just below the header. Just a little running stitch in and out, in and out. I like to use a thimble. I use the thimble to push the needle through so that the back end of the needle doesn't poke me like this, so it doesn't poke my finger. Kind of protects my finger. That looks good. Now I will place this collar around her neck and join the ends in the back here. Just join these ends. Pull it nice and tight. Distribute the fullness of the gathers. And then I'm going to stitch through from the back to the front center top, right there. And I'm going to add a button there. This is my last little pink button on this card. These are vintage buttons, and I'm sorry I don't have a source for these, but you can always use just any small button. If it's not pink, it's okay. You could use a mother of pearl button or a different color, a plastic button, whatever you like. You could do a little charm, a little, I don't know, a die cut or something from felt. But I love these little pink buttons because they just seem to they seem to go with the look of this fabric. And that looks about in the middle. That's close enough, right? So I'll go through one more time. From the back all the way to the front and through the button. This is the same thread that I used to gather up the lace. And then I'll secure it on the back. Let's make the hair. I have a 4x6" index card, which I am folding in half this way. Matching the short ends. And then I have two different kinds of yarn. One is sort of a loopy yarn and one is more of a fuzzy yarn. And I'm going to wrap this card the long way 12 times. Since I have two strands, it's the same as wrapping 24 times. And now I'll go over to my machine and I will stitch across the center right here, down and up. Here's how it looks. And now I'll reach in and tear out the card along the perforations that were made by the sewing. Okay, here's how it looks. I call this the wig. Now the wig is going to be placed along the head like in this direction. It's not like a part that goes down this way. It goes across like this. So I'm going to squeeze out some hot glue along here, kind of from ear to ear if she had ears, just across the top of the head like a headband. There we go. And now I'm going to press the wig into the glue, the ends in the back. And then I'm going to add some more glue along here and press the center where the thread is into that glue in the back. That looks good. Now I want to fold the hair back to have a look. That looks good. Okay, now with my needle and thread, I'm going to tie this off into sort of a top knot like this. I'll go around it a couple of times, tie a knot. I like my knot to be a little bit off center here. And then I'm going to go actually sew through the hair below the place where it's tied. That just gives a little extra security. And now for her hanging loop, I'm using this pink and white baker's twine, which I'm just going to sew through the hair right below her top knot. Then a little overhand knot. That looks good. And then for her halo, I'm going to cut off about 6 or 7 inches of 20 gauge gold wire. This will be plenty. And then I'll fold it in half, cross over the ends, twist, and then pull it out to make it more of a circle, and then bend up the stem like that. Then I'm going to apply some glue here. This stem might be a little long. Let's see. Yeah, that's a little long. Let me cut some off. That's better. So I'll put some glue here and then press it into the top center of the hair. There we go. And then for an extra little touch, here we go. I have these pips, little red berry pips, and I'm just crossing them like this, twisting them a few times, and then cutting this off. But you need to make sure that you leave a fairly significant amount of that twist there to make sure that they stay together. Then I'm going to add some glue here and press that into her hairstyle right there. And you could use something else. You could put anything you like right there. I just like a little bit of red. Okay, now let's do the wings. I cut this circle from lightweight interfacing, and I'm going to use this fabric, which I'm almost out of, and I'm going to iron the interfacing onto the wrong side of this white fabric. Now I'll fold this in half, and I'm going to stitch all the way along this curved edge with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Here's how it looks. I trimmed the seam allowance a little bit, and now it doesn't really matter which is the front and which is the back, since this print is really non-directional. I make a little cross here with my disappearing marker. I kind of wanted to determine the center first, so kind of like that. And then making sure that I'm only going through one layer. See, this is the other layer. Clip here, and then here, and here, and then turn this through the opening. It shouldn't be hard. If it's hard, you didn't make the opening big enough. Now it's important to remember that this part with the cut in it is the front. So this is the part that will actually be glued here like this. But first I'm going to press this flat, and I'm going to thread my machine with pink. Now I'm going to add a decorative stitch along the edge, just the curved edge of the wings. I'm going to use a sort of a scallop. I like the way that looks, but you can use whatever you want. I also have done this with just a zigzag or a straight stitch, or another machine has a little baby scallop, which is really cute, but this machine has a little bit bigger scallop. It's sort of like a satin stitch. So I'm going to add that, and I'll be right back. Here we go. Here's how it looks. Here's the front. Here, that opening is right there, and I don't do anything to close that. It's going to be glued just like this, so no one will ever see it. And there's my little scallop. It never turns out perfectly. This is half a scallop, and this is where I started, and it's kind of hard to get it exactly, you know, perfect, but I like it. So I'm going to add some hot glue right here, and then I'm going to press this into the back of her head. Like this. I'll hold this for a second. The angel is done. I have a couple of other examples to show you. Here's one that I made with a deer, and it also has pink embroidery, which looks good, looks fine. I don't think I did anything different on this one. Then I wanted to show you that, of course, you can make it with more traditional colors. So this one was also fun and looks very traditional and Christmassy. But for our baby's first Christmas, I just thought the pastels would be a little bit more appreciated. Thank you for watching my tutorial. If you're enjoying my videos, please like, share, and subscribe.